James Kimani stepped out of the black Range Rover and immediately felt out of place. His Italian leather shoes sank slightly into the red earth of Nyeri County. The air smelled different from Nairobi, cleaner, mixed with wood smoke and wet soil from the morning rain. "Sir, shall I wait here?" his driver, Peter, asked from the car window. James looked at the small dirt road leading to his father's farm. 20 years. He had not been back in 20 years. "No, Peter, go back to Nairobi. I'll call you when I need you." "But sir, there's no hotel here. Where will you stay?" James smiled. "Just go, I'll be fine." The driver looked doubtful, but nodded and drove away, leaving James alone on the road with his small bag. As James walked toward the farm, memories flooded back. He remembered running down this same road as a boy, his feet bare, chasing after his father's old bicycle. Back then, he didn't own shoes. Now he wore shoes that cost more than his father probably earned in a year. The guilt twisted in his stomach. The farm looked smaller than he remembered. The maize stalks were tall and green, ready for harvest soon. A few chickens scratched in the yard. The house was the same, small, with a rusted iron roof, mud walls that had been painted but were now faded and cracked. An old man was working in the field, bent over, pulling weeds. He wore torn trousers and a shirt that had been patched many times. His hands moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this work for 50 years. James's throat tightened. His father had grown so old. He approached slowly. "Excuse me, MZ," he called out, using the respectful term for an elder. "Good morning." The old man straightened up slowly, one hand on his lower back. He squinted at James, using his hand to shade his eyes from the sun. "Good morning, young man." His father's voice was exactly as James remembered, deep, calm, patient. "Are you lost? The main road is back that way." James's heart broke a little. His own father didn't recognize him. But what did he expect? He had left as a skinny 22-year-old with nothing but a laptop and a dream. Now he was 42, heavier, wearing expensive clothes, his face lined with the stress of running a company worth billions of shillings. "No, MZ, I'm not lost. I'm looking for work. I heard you might need help with the harvest." The old man studied him. "You don't look like a farm worker. Your hands are too soft." James looked at his hands. It was true. The last time these hands touched soil was 20 years ago. "I'm strong," James said. "I can learn. I just need a place to stay and food to eat. I don't need much pay." His father scratched his chin. "What's your name?" James almost said James Kimani, but stopped himself. "Just call me JK." "JK, strange name. I'm Kimani Mwangi. This is my farm." He looked James up and down again. "You're wearing expensive clothes for someone looking for farm work." "These are borrowed," James lied. "Please, MZ, I just need a chance." Kimani thought for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, harvest season is coming. My back isn't what it used to be. You can stay in the small house behind the main house. It's not much, just one room, no electricity, but it has a roof and a bed." "Thank you, MZ." "Come, I'll show you. And JK, tomorrow morning we start at 6 o'clock. If you're not awake, don't bother staying." James woke up at 5:30 a.m. to the sound of a rooster crowing. His body ached from sleeping on the thin mattress. The small room was dark and cold. There was no bathroom, just an outhouse in the back and a bucket of water for washing. He had slept in 5-star hotels in London, New York, Dubai. He had a penthouse in Nairobi with a heated bathroom and a bed that cost 300,000 shillings. But as he washed his face with the cold water, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt awake, really awake. His father was already in the field when James came out. The old man handed him a djembe, a traditional hoe. "You know how to use this." James took it. The wooden handle was smooth from years of use. "I think I remember." His father smiled slightly. "We'll see." They worked in silence. James followed his father's example, bending, striking the soil, pulling weeds, moving forward row by row. Within 30 minutes, James's back was screaming. Within an hour, his hands had blisters. By mid-morning, he thought he might collapse. His father worked steadily, never stopping, never complaining. At 74 years old, he was stronger than James had ever been. "Water break," his father finally called. They sat under a magumo tree. His father pulled out a thermos of tea and 2 tin cups. The tea was strong, sweet, mixed with milk. James hadn't tasted tea like this in 20 years. In Nairobi, he drank espresso from an Italian machine that cost 200,000 shillings. This tea tasted better. "You're not used to this work," his father observed. "No," James admitted, "but I'll get better." "Why are you here, JK? A young man like you should be in the city, making money, building a life." James chose his words carefully. "I had a life in the city, a good job, money, a nice apartment, but I lost something important. I needed to get away to remember who I used to be." His father nodded slowly. "The city changes people. My son went to the city 20 years ago. He was going to university, going to study computers. He was very smart." James's chest tightened. What happened to him? "I don't know, he called sometimes at first. Then the calls stopped. Maybe he's rich now, maybe he's poor, maybe he's dead." His father's voice was flat, emotionless, but James could hear the pain underneath. "I used to be angry, now I'm just old." "Maybe he thinks about you," James said quietly. "Maybe he's sorry." "Sorry doesn't visit, sorry doesn't help with the harvest." His father stood up. "Come, the weeds don't pull themselves." The days developed a rhythm. Wake before sunrise, work in the fields, break for porridge at 9 a.m., work until lunch at 1 p.m., rest during the hottest part of the day, work again from 4 p.m. until sunset, eat dinner, sleep. James's body slowly adjusted. The blisters on his hands became calluses. His back grew stronger. His soft belly began to shrink. But more than his body changed, his mind became quieter. In Nairobi, his phone rang constantly. Meetings, emails, decisions worth millions of shillings. His company, Kimani Tech Solutions, had created software that half of East Africa's businesses used. He had 300 employees. He was on the news. He gave speeches at conferences. Here, there was no phone signal, no emails, no decisions except which field to weed next. It was the most peace he had felt in 15 years. His father rarely spoke while working, but in the evenings, they would sit outside and talk. James learned to listen to his father's stories, about the seasons, about the neighbors, about the small dramas of village life. One evening, his father told him about a goat that had gotten loose and eaten the pastor's wife's vegetables, causing a big argument that the whole village had to solve. James found himself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. "You have a good laugh, JK," his father said. "You should do it more often. You look too serious for a young man." "I've forgotten how to laugh," James admitted. "Then you've forgotten how to live." James thought about his life in Nairobi, his expensive apartment that he only used for sleeping, his expensive car that sat in traffic, his expensive clothes that he wore to impress people he didn't like, his expensive watch that reminded him he never had enough time. When was the last time he had laughed, really laughed? When was the last time he had felt anything? On the 5th day, James met the neighbors. Mama Njeri lived on the next farm with her 3 children. Her husband had died 2 years ago, and she was struggling to manage everything alone. "Kimani is a good man," she told James when she came to borrow some maize flour. "When my husband died, Kimani helped me plow my fields. He shares his harvest. Not many men would help a widow with nothing to give back." James looked at his father with new eyes. The old man just shrugged. "We help each other here. That's how we survive." Later that week, Mama Njeri's cow got sick. James watched as his father spent his entire day helping her, even though his own work was waiting. They tried everything, but the cow died. Mama Njeri cried. "That cow was everything. The milk fed my children. How will we survive?" James knew that he could buy her 10 cows without even noticing the money. He had a checking account with 12 million shillings that he never touched. He could solve her problem with one phone call. But he stayed quiet. That night, he heard his father on an old mobile phone, calling the neighbors. Within 2 days, the village had organized. Each family gave what they could. Some gave money, some gave food. One family gave a young calf that would grow into a cow. James watched in amazement. These poor farmers, who had so little, gave freely. "Why does everyone help?" he asked his father. "Because next time it might be us who needs help. We are not rich people, JK. We cannot survive alone. We survive together." James thought about Nairobi. He had wealthy friends, other business owners, investors, politicians, but they weren't really friends. They were connections, useful people. If he lost everything tomorrow, would any of them help him? He knew the answer was no. On the 7th evening, a storm rolled in. James and his father rushed to cover the maize with tarps and bring the chickens inside. The rain came hard, driven by strong winds. Lightning cracked across the sky. They sat inside the small house, listening to the rain hammer on the iron roof. A leak in the corner dripped into a bucket. "This roof needs repair," James observed. "Everything needs repair," his father said tiredly. "The roof, the fence, the chicken house, but repairs cost money." "How much would a new roof cost?" His father laughed bitterly. "More than I have, maybe 50,000 shillings for materials. I've been saving, but—" he trailed off. James could write a check for 50 million shillings right now. His watch alone cost more than this entire farm. "Why don't you ask your son for help?" James asked quietly. "The one who went to the city." His father was silent for a long time. "Pride is a terrible thing, JK. When he left, I told him not to forget where he came from. I told him to call, to visit, to remember his family. The calls stopped after 5 years. At first I was angry. Then I became too proud to call him, too proud to ask for help, too proud to admit that I missed him." His father's voice cracked slightly. "Now, I don't even know if he would remember me. Maybe I'm just the old man who raised him. Maybe he has a new family, a better life. Maybe he's ashamed of his poor father." James felt tears on his face. Maybe he's ashamed of himself. Maybe he stayed away because he was afraid. Maybe he became someone he didn't recognize and didn't know how to come home. His father looked at him strangely. "You sound like you know something about this." "I know about becoming someone you don't recognize." They sat in silence, listening to the rain. The next morning, the storm had passed. James and his father went to check the fields. Some of the maize had been damaged, but most of it survived. As they worked, his father asked, "JK, you've been here a week now. You work hard, but I can see this is not your life. Your hands are getting stronger, but they were not meant for farming. What are you running from?" James stopped working. He looked at his father, really looked at him. The deep wrinkles around his eyes, the gray hair, the strong hands that had worked this soil for 50 years. The man who had raised him, who had sold his own cow to pay for James's school fees, who had gone hungry so James could eat. "I'm not running from something," James said slowly. "I'm trying to find something I lost." "And have you found it?" James looked around, at the green fields, at the simple house, at the sky clearing after the storm. "I'm starting to." His father nodded. "Good, then maybe tomorrow you can tell me the truth about who you really are." James's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" His father smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "JK, James Kimani, you think an old man is blind? I knew on the second day. You hold the djembe exactly like I taught you when you were 12. You have the same scar on your left hand from when you fell from the mango tree. You laugh like your mother, God rest her soul." "Then why?" "Because you needed to remember, and I needed to see if you could still do it, still work with your hands, still live simply, still be my son instead of whoever you became in the city." His father's eyes were wet. "Tomorrow you can tell me everything. Tonight we finish the harvest together." James couldn't speak. He could only nod. They worked until sunset, side by side, father and son, just as they had 20 years ago.